It was supposed to be an ordinary night, the kind where nothing happens. The streets outside were quiet, bathed in the soft glow of the street lamps. Inside, she sat alone in her small, cozy house. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound breaking the silence. It was a night like any other, until the knock came. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door. At first, she didn't move. Who would come by at this hour? She wasn't expecting anyone. Her friends knew better than to drop by unannounced, especially so late. She felt her heart quicken, the soft hum of comfort in her home, now replaced with a creeping sense of dread. For a moment, she considered ignoring it. Maybe it was just someone lost, knocking on the wrong door. But then the knocking came again, slow, deliberate, and louder this time. Her pulse raced as she stood up and cautiously approached the door. She reached for the peephole, her fingers trembling. She half expected to see nothing, to be greeted by an empty porch. But when she looked, her breath caught. There was someone there. It was a man standing motionless, his face hidden by the shadow of the porch light. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, as if waiting for something. Her mind raced. Should she open it? Should she ask who he was? But something deep inside told her not to. Something about the way he stood there, unmoving, made her skin crawl. The seconds felt like hours as they both remained frozen on either side of the door. She waited for him to say something, to knock again, but he remained silent, just standing there, watching. Her heart pounded louder than the rain. Slowly, she backed away from the door, her mind screaming for her to call the police. But before she could move any further, the knocks came again. 3 more, louder this time. Her breath quickened as she kept her distance, her eyes glued to the door. Then she noticed something. There was an envelope. It hadn't been there before. She was certain of it. Somehow, in the moments between knocks, it had appeared at her feet. She stared at it, her pulse hammering in her ears. The envelope was plain, with no markings, no name, just a single piece of paper folded inside. Against her better judgment, she picked it up, her hands trembling as she opened it. The words were simple, yet they sent a chill through her entire body. "Let me in." Her chest tightened. She dropped the letter, her mind spinning. Why was this happening? Who was this man? And how had he slipped the letter through without her seeing? The door rattled as if the stranger outside was testing the handle. Her heart raced. She stepped back again, her legs weak, every fiber of her being screaming at her to run. But where could she go? She was trapped inside her own home, a prisoner of her own fear. Just as she felt the panic fully consume her, the final knock came. This time, it shook the door, louder, more forceful than before. It wasn't a request anymore. It was a demand. She clutched her chest, her breath coming in short gasps. Every instinct told her not to open the door, but the pressure weighed on her like a physical force. The room seemed to darken, the walls closing in around her. She was out of options. But then, silence. The knocking stopped. Her heart hammered in her chest as she waited. The silence stretched on, too long. She approached the door one final time, her hands shaking as she peeked through the peephole. The man was gone. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. He was gone, but as she turned to move away from the door, something stopped her in her tracks. The sound of slow, deliberate footsteps coming from behind her. She froze. The cold realization crept over her. The man wasn't outside anymore. He was inside. He had been all along, and she was not alone.